Hello everyone, we're here at beautiful Gallup Reserve today and we're going to be talking all things VO2 max. I already made a video on this, but we're going to go into more detail and get more specific about it so that you know how to train your VO2 max and make sure you become as fast as possible. But this video will definitely help if you've seen the previous video on VO2 max already, so I will link that in the description, but let's get right into the video. So in the last video, we talked about how VO2 max is the capacity to perform, whereas threshold is how efficiently we can use that capacity. So there's no point having a high VO2 max if you have a low running economy or a low threshold, because then you're not maximizing the potential there because you're basically wasting oxygen. You're working at a high VO2, you're able to use a lot of oxygen, but you're not putting it to good use. So that's why I refer to velocity at VO2 max and how that matters more than what your actual VO2 max is. So yes, VO2 max is important, but if you're running with really crappy form and you're not actually running that quick at that high VO2 max, there's actually no point.
Your VO2 max is 69 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute? Cool story, bro. But that doesn't mean anything if you can't run fast with that VO2 max.
So the main thing I want to talk about in this video is why we do VO2 max blocks and not trickle them in every 2 weeks or so. And what this comes down to is the simple thing that I always talk about, which is to do with human physiology. You need to add a stimulus and you get a response or adaptation from it. But we need to remember that with VO2 max, we're adding a high intensity and we're trying to get a really good, solid adaptation from it. And trickling it in every 2 weeks is not going to give a strong enough signal to your body to actually make a meaningful adaptation, which is why we need to stress the system a lot repeatedly in a short period of time, and then hope that we can kind of cling on to that fitness and give our body a bit of time to recover from that block, that intense block. And then next time you'll get it back a bit quicker because we've already activated it once, we've already got to that stage once. So the next time we build up to it, it's not going to take as much time because we're just reactivating rather than recreating the entire adaptation. So the second time it always doesn't take as long. So essentially with a VO2 max block, we're trying to get a stimulus and response chain. So stimulus, response, stimulus, response, stimulus, response for like 4 to 6 weeks. It could be 6 to 8 weeks. Everyone can handle different amounts of speed. So this does depend on the person. And also we want to do a meaningful amount where you're actually seeing an adaptation before we give ourselves a little bit of a deload period where we go back to just base training, which consists of threshold and easy running, and maybe a little bit of strides too. So that's why I never want to be specific about how long a VO2 max block is, because it really depends on the person, what's your training background, what's your sporting background, how long do you take to adapt. Everyone's so different. Again, I do personalized coaching, but I'm not going to be able to give you a specific tip through this video because I'm talking to thousands of people. The interesting part here though is that if you can tolerate a lot of VO2 max, you could benefit a lot from doing a really extended 10 to 12 week VO2 max block and then taking a bit of a break. I think if you do the same thing the whole year round, you're going to adapt to that and get used to it too much, and your body's not going to see it as a signal to adapt and improve, so you will plateau. And that's why I'm still a fan of doing VO2 max blocks and not doing VO2 max the whole year round, because I think there is benefit to having periods where you do add that really high intensity sort of stimulus and get that response and adaptation from it, rather than doing it year round. And this is different for threshold and easy runs because that's lower intensity. We want to continuously add that stimulus to our body and get that year round benefit. So easy running threshold, you can kind of do the whole year, but VO2 max, we want that huge gain in a short amount of time, and we want to tell our body that they need to adapt by cramming it in a short period, not doing it year round. Okay, so a lot of people forget that VO2 max training, or even any training, it's not as simple as you're doing VO2 max training or you're not. There's different aspects of VO2 max, like how quickly you spike your oxygen and how quickly you're able to adapt to that, how long you can sustain that high oxygen consumption for, and also how long you can sustain just under VO2 max for as well. All three are different skills within VO2 max. So it's important to remember that it's not as simple as VO2 max workout or not. Now, before we look at the different types of VO2 max sessions, let's quickly reiterate what VO2 max sort of is roughly. So again, it's how much oxygen you can use at a high intensity, but in terms of how many minutes you can sustain it for, it's like a 7 to 8 minute all-out effort, keeping in mind that there will be individual variances depending on the person as well. So not everyone is going to sit within that 7 to 8 minute sort of all-out effort. You might be on the extreme end, you can hold VO2 max for like 9-10 minutes, or you might be on the other end of the spectrum where you might only be able to hold VO2 max for like 3 to 4 minutes. So it kind of depends on the person, but it also depends on how long you've been running for and also how experienced you are with VO2 max training, because we are trying to sustain VO2 max effort for longer, and that's the goal goal so that the sub-maximal efforts become so much easier later on. But anyway, with VO2 max sessions, we can look at shorter reps, medium reps, and longer reps. With the shorter reps, the goal is to actually teach our bodies to be able to spike the VO2 or ventilation in a quick, short time frame. So in a 30-second rep, we have to run way quicker than VO2 max. We're talking about 110, 120, 130% of VO2 max. So way quicker in order to spike that VO2 and breathing hard. But keep in mind, these shorter rep sessions are still working on elevating your VO2, so raising that roof as well. Just like anything else in running, there's a lot of overlap, but certain types of workout reps will favor certain types of adaptations a bit more. So this, we're talking about spiking the O2 or VO2 a bit more. Medium reps, 2 to 4 minute reps, we're trying to hold that maximum oxygen capacity or maximum oxygen efficiency for a longer period of time. So this is talking about more 100% of VO2 max sort of effort, or maybe just above it as well, because 100% of VO2 max we can hold for 7 to 8 minutes, we know that. And again, this sort of rep distance is perfect for trying to raise that roof to getting a higher VO2 max score. And then with the longer reps, like the 5 to 6 minute reps, we're working on sustaining that slightly sub-maximal VO2 pace for a long period of time. So we're trying to get efficient right under. So varying up the rep distances allows us to work a little bit below, a little bit at, and a little bit above VO2 max and get the benefits of all three. All three of them are still going to help you raise your VO2 max, but we're talking about slightly different nuances in terms of the sort of VO2 max adaptation we're looking at, even though there is still a lot of overlap and you're kind of working on everything at the same time. So when I prescribe workouts like threshold or VO2 max, I'm thinking about it in terms of work to rest ratio. So how long a rep is in relation to the rest. With VO2 max, we're aiming for more of a 1-to-1 ratio. So if the rep is 2 minutes, we're looking at like 2-minute recovery, roughly. There is nuance to it, but with threshold, we're looking at more higher workload with lower rest. So an 8-minute threshold rep might only be 60-second recovery or 90-second recovery or 2-minute recovery at most, I would say. So that's the main differentiator between VO2 max workouts and threshold workouts. Threshold, we need equal sort of recovery, but as we get to the longer VO2 max reps, obviously we don't really want to be taking 6-minute rest after a 6-minute VO2 effort, but those workouts are pretty rare. You're not going to be doing 6-minute VO2 reps that often, but if you do a 6-minute VO2 rep and you have another 6-minute VO2 rep to do after that, I'd probably take like 4 to 5 minute rest. I wouldn't take the full 6 minutes, but it's still closer to that 1-to-1 ratio, whereas threshold, there's a huge difference in terms of 6-minute rep will be 60-second jog. So that's the sort of work to rest ratio that you're expecting between threshold versus VO2 max workouts. So I'll explain the reason real quick, but with threshold, we're obviously trying to spend as much time at threshold as possible. So having the longer reps and then the shorter recovery allows us to spend more time there. Whereas VO2 max, we want to run at a high oxygen consumption, but we also want to recover enough so that we can get that quality to stay where it is, because we don't want to just break down in form and run with inefficient form, because velocity at VO2 max matters a lot. We want to be running quick at VO2 max because, like I said at the start of the video, it doesn't matter if you have a high VO2 max if you're not really efficient at that VO2 max, right? So essentially the ultimate goal with the rest duration for VO2 max is that we want to maintain high breathing, but we want to let our muscles recover so we can add another quality rep afterwards and not run with really crappy form. So in the last few videos, I've started to talk more about adaptations and how all the zones overlap. Whether you're working at zone 5 or zone 1, you're still increasing blood flow to the muscles because your working muscles have a higher demand for oxygen. So there isn't such thing as zone 1 equals this adaptation only and zone 5 equals this adaptation only. Everything along the spectrum might prefer a different type of adaptation, but you still get all the other adaptations technically with all the zones. But it's good that people have this knowledge now, because now we can talk about the difference between central adaptations and peripheral adaptations. So first of all, when we're running at a relative lower intensity, so when we're comparing two intensities, that could be VO2 versus threshold, it could be threshold versus easy run, it could be easy run versus recovery run, or even threshold versus recovery run. If you pick two intensities, the lower intensity will favor peripheral adaptations more. And when I say peripheral adaptations, we're talking about mitochondrial density, enzyme activity, capillarization, stuff that's like not the heart and the lung. Central adaptations, we're talking about heart and lung, and like blood plasma volume and that sort of stuff. But peripheral is like the working muscles around there. But the reason why the peripheral adaptations are stimulated more with lower intensities is because at a lower intensity, you're highly likely meeting the oxygen demand already. So we don't need more oxygen. We don't need the heart to pump more. all we need is for the muscles to utilize that existing oxygen a lot better. So that's why there's more capillaries around the muscles, there's more enzyme activity and efficiency, there's more mitochondrial density so that they can actually do stuff with the oxygen. So that's why you get more peripheral adaptations with the lower intensity. But as you move on to the higher intensities, we have a bit more of a central adaptation response. When we're starting to get to VO2, we need more oxygen to the muscles, so we need to actually be pumping more blood. So our heart's getting stronger, we're pumping more blood in one beat. We have a higher cardiac output, so more blood pumped every minute, and our blood plasma volume is going to increase the efficiency of blood flow, and you'll probably get like artery contraction adaptations, smooth muscles being stronger, better balance between contractility and elasticity of the heart muscles and all that sort of stuff. And this is going to contribute to more oxygenated blood getting towards the tissues, so the circulation is getting better and more efficient over time. I won't get into too much detail in this video, but there is this thing that I learned in physiotherapy recently called VQ mismatch or VQ matching. V stands for ventilation, Q stands for perfusion, which is actually to do with blood flow. And in the lung, obviously, there's blood being transported to the lung and picking up oxygen from the lungs, right? And when we're working at a high intensity, because there's so much fast circulation of the blood, because think about it, when you're running at a high pace, you have a high heart rate as well. Think about all the blood circulating. It's really hard for all the hemoglobin to pick up oxygen. So there's actually a mismatch in the ventilation and the perfusion of oxygen. And with VO2 max, we're trying to work on VQ matching a bit better. So we're trying to breathe in a lot of oxygen and actually be able to pick up all that oxygen and become more efficient with it. So yeah, VO2 max is more central adaptations, but if we're comparing 110% VO2 max versus 90% VO2 max, there's still going to be that slight difference in terms of that 110% of VO2 max being more central adaptations and 90% of VO2 max being more peripheral adaptations. But again, that's a very small difference because the difference in intensity between 90% VO2 max and 110% VO2 max is still pretty similar. But you'll notice the difference a bit more when you're comparing an easy run to a VO2 max session. I know this is a bit harder to understand, but if you do understand a bit of human physiology already, it probably won't be that hard to understand. But for someone that hasn't really done science, obviously that's going to be a bit harder to understand, but I thought I'd still mention it because some people will be interested in this sort of stuff, and I certainly am. I find it super interesting. So as always, I hope this video was helpful. I really enjoyed filming it and being out in nature as always, but I'm going to end it off here. Thank you for watching. Leave a like, comment below what you want to see next. And also, as always, there's a buy me a coffee link in the description where you can support the channel if you can and if you have the means to do so. Here are my most recent donors. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.